We have heard of the beggar who used to sit at the main crossing in the city. He had been begging since many years, rather decades. He had been begging since so long that it could be said that he had been begging all his life. People had grown so used to his begging face, his begging voice, that whenever they would think of a beggar, this person's face, voice, actions would come to their mind. One could say that this fellow was begging personified. Having begged for so long, he had internalized begging so much that even when he was not asking for favors, there was the beggar still present in his eyes, in his walk, in his voice, in his total presence. He had become an institution in himself. So much so that the new beggars or the young beggars who would come to the city would actually come to watch him. Just looking at him, even if he was asleep, even if he was just having his meals, just looking at him was sufficient to give a clear picture of what begging is. Even if he would be joking, it was so obvious that he was still begging, that it was still the beggar at work. One could have safely removed the word beggar from dictionary and instead substituted it with his name. The only difficulty in this was that nobody knew his name anymore. He was only known as the beggar. Having begged for 5 decades, 7 decades. He died. His presence had become a feature of that crossing. In fact, a part of the city itself. People had grown accustomed to seeing him or hearing his voice whenever they would reach that crossing. For many, it had become a part of daily routine to give him a coin or two. So when he departed, it almost felt as if a part of the city or a part of the population had departed. They went to his place. They decided to give him a respectable farewell. They collected his rag. His old utensils, his shabby clothes. There was anyway not much. When they picked up his rag, they noticed that the earth under the rag was a little strange. People are curious. They decided to see what the matter was. So a few young men dug up the earth. And there they found a few coins. They went deeper. And they found a few more. And by now they were energized. Their shovels started hitting the earth even harder. And more coins, and more coins, and more was unearthed. They kept digging and finding more. It became a huge spectacle in the city. People gathered around the place of the dead beggar. At first they thought that these are the coins that they had been giving the beggar since long. So he had probably accumulated them here. But as the digging continued, it became clear that this was a treasure of a different nature. The coins here were such that the city had never seen before. And after a few days of digging, the city discovered that it was probably the biggest treasure that any of his residents had seen or even imagined. But the beggar was gone. The beggar was dead. They started remembering how the beggar had lived. People would gather around that rag where he used to sit and reflect on life. They would look at the huge pit that had been created, the way it was brimming with gold, and they would think of the way the beggar had lived all his life. Memories would come to him of how he had gone from person to person, meekly asking, how he had even shed tears, how he had been keeping such a distorted face that people would be moved into pity. How he would become angry, and how he would sometimes tell in the afternoon that he hasn't received much throughout the day. How he would sometimes go hungry, and even when he was not sleeping hungry, he would still be afraid of sleeping on an empty stomach. It was such a puzzle. People find it difficult to reconcile. He was sitting over an endless, bottomless store of richness. But his life had been extremely miserable. The more they thought of the way he had lived, the more they went into the memories of his face, his voice, his clothes, his thoughts, his actions, his entire life. The more it became difficult for them. Then slowly it happened that a few young men who would sit there and contemplate started feeling that the face of the beggar is a little bit similar to the face of the other elderly people they see all day. The fellow who first experienced this felt uneasy at his own insight. He said, "No, how is it possible? He was just a poor beggar. And the senior ones around me are all well-to-do and respectable people. How can the face of a beggar bear similarity to the face of the honorable ones?" But having seen what he had, he could not unsee it. Very soon, what initially appeared like just a faint similarity started to show up as a deep equality. He started getting more and more convinced that the beggar was not really dead, that he had not really gone away, that there were so many like the beggar all around him. One day, gathering courage, one of these young men went to the old ones and said, "You know, the beggar died in a very strange way, and having seen the riches that he was sitting on, I've also started seeing that the face of the beggar looks so similar to your face. The old man nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, you are right. The beggar's face is my face. But young man, you too have come from me. Have you ever looked at your own face closely? Or do you think that you are really different? You too have come from me. Go look at your face clearly and closely." And that day the young man discovered that his own face had a few lines, a few expressions similar to that of the beggar. He was astounded. Because he was now seeing the beggar all around him. The only way to not to see the beggar around was to not to see at all. In fact, he started seeing just the beggar. The differences in age, name, gender, religion, ideology and economics, they all ceased mattering. It did not matter whether he was looking at a university professor or a housewife. It did not matter whether he was looking at a student of technology or a shopkeeper. It did not matter whether he was looking at a soldier or a lover. All he could see was the beggar. The soldier was the beggar and the lover was the beggar. The old woman was the beggar and the young girl was the beggar. It started becoming difficult for him to even remember names. When there is no real difference, why address people by different names? The young man is still around. He keeps roaming the streets of the city. He wants to understand what happened. When he looks around, he says, there is nobody but beggars in the city. And sometimes he feels like saying, there is only one here who is not a beggar. But he goes around in rags. This morning, let's look at our own faces. Let's invite the young man in. And be bold enough to ask him how our faces look. Yes, how do we look? Is there really a difference between the man who stops in his car at that crossing and he is in a terrible hurry? He needs to reach his office for a client meeting. If he doesn't reach in time, then his payments would be at stake. Such is the man who is there in the big car at the crossing. And then there is the beggar standing at the door of the car, pleading, knocking, trying to get some payments. Is there really a difference between the man inside the car and the man outside the car? The beggar trembles upon thinking that he may not receive anything today. The man inside the car trembles even more on thinking that he may not receive anything. The young man is going around asking, why do we call ourselves with any name? One universal name would suffice. Yes, so what do you feel? The topic today is fearless living. Do you see a relation between fear and begging? What relation do you see? Yes.
Fear of losing something or not getting something forces us to beg.
Do you see the million ways of begging? Tell me a few ways in which begging happens. The young man is seeing that all ways of mankind are just new and new, different and different ways of just begging. What are the different ways of begging?
Yesterday I was seeing one ad. It was written that even for boys now you can look good, some cream or so. Why you need to look good? And what is looking good? So this is one kind of begging where you want to get some respect or appreciation that has been defined by somebody else. This is one example. Just saw the paper and came to my mind. There are so many like that.
Begging is outcome of my fear, because in every activity of my day I am very scared to lose something that is actually not mine, that doesn't belong to me. It has given to me by somebody else, and I'm very much scared that it will go somewhere. So every moment, every thought is actually I'm begging something. I want to save something that doesn't belong to me.
A young man has found it interesting that what looks like the normal activities of mankind, normal, healthy activities of mankind, also have a great deal of begging contained in them. Somebody is greeting somebody. Somebody is claiming that he is fulfilling his responsibilities. Somebody is expressing his love. Somebody is going to the temple. Somebody is reading a wisdom book. Somebody is just walking down a road. Somebody is in a shopping mall. These are not really places or actions where you would say begging is prevalent. But the young man says, no, I only see beggars. Why does he say that?
There is no such activity we do without any purpose. Like for example, you just said walking. So we even don't walk just like that, like just for without any reason or without any purpose. There is something in mind which tells why I am walking. Like some people walk for health, maybe for there is some reason behind it for everything. Like mind is so reasonable that it doesn't do anything without any reason. So reason means and every reason tells that if I do this, I have to get this. So in a way that I am always lacking something and I need to get something. Even simplest activities in mind there is that I am beggar and I am wanting something from outside. So mind is never free where it acts without thinking that I have to get something. Mind is always work to seek something.
The young man became tired of seeing just one kind of face all around. He decided to relieve himself of the mental load. He went to sports stadiums, he went to theaters, cinema halls. He went to places where great celebrations were taking place. And he returned all the more despondent. He said that in the theater, all I could see on the screen and in the hall were beggars. Is the young man going mad? Is the young man going mad? He went to sports stadiums. He said the athletes who were running with all their might were just like beggars chasing old women for charity. He said the zealous crowds that were cheering and shouting were just colonies of beggars shouting to get alms. Is the young man mad? The young man went to a wedding. He looked at the bride, the groom, the father of the bride, the mother of the groom. And he said that so much arrangement has been made for begging. And his heart was broken. He asked, does religion sanction begging? The priest in the wedding told him that yes, religion does not only sanction but actually promote begging. He went to the bride. He asked her that with so much of ornamentation, what could you collect, lady? The bride had a rare moment of honesty. She pointed at the groom. She said, my begging bowl is full for the day. Look how the groom sits in it. He went to the father of the bride. He was telling people around him that now he is relieved that he could fulfill his responsibilities. The young man's presence was such that it inspired a flash of clarity in those he met. He asked him, that why did you make such grand arrangements for begging? He replied to the young man, son, you are mistaken. It is not only today that I have made these arrangements. My entire life has been a series of such arrangements and events. The moment of insight was now over. Suddenly the face of the father of the bride became hard. His voice started shivering. There was sudden panic in his eyes. He was a respectable man and there were guests around him. And this young man was robbing him of all that he had begged for the day. The young man suddenly remembered that he had seen the same panicky look on the face of the dead beggar the day he felt that a few of his coins had dropped out of his pocket. And sure enough, he saw that 2 or 3 of the respectable guests had overheard the conversation and looked like dropping out of the wedding celebration. What is fear? What is fear? What is fear?
Something that is coming to an end. The thought, that thought is fear. It can be anything. It can be people around us, the things. It can be job, money, health, anything. That thought, that these, everything will come to an end. Thought is my fear.
What comes to an end?
The relationship of that with that particular thing. Like I
From
think
where did the relationship come?
it comes from my mind, the attachment, yes, for sure. If I am with somebody, I start feeling attached to my mind. If I have something, if I have my job, if I have some money accumulated, I have made some attachment with that particular thing. And somewhere back of the mind or somewhere in my mind or subconscious mind, I understand that yes, this thing will not be mine forever. So that thought creates fear.
Why did you not say that it doesn't come from anywhere or that it was always there? Was it always there?
That thought?
Whatever
Yes.
comes to an end, was it always there? Was the always there? Was this thinker who says that something was there or something would come to an end, was this thinker always there?
The thinker who's giving me that thought.
This thought.
He might be there, but probably I have not realized that.
Sometimes isn't it just need? I may not be holding the thing in my hand, or that I may lose and that will give me fear. But I can see that thing, and because I have so much of need to get it, that gives me fear. That okay, I don't have it. It was just a small incident that happened yesterday. When I reached my room, my roommate just told me that you were not here for the entire day, and I just wished you were here, and that's it. Maybe it was just a normal gesture, but when I sat back and now that I think, I realize that I also feel those things at times. Maybe some day when I am alone, I think, okay, she should have been, or someone should have been here. So those dependencies, or it's in my head. If I'm somewhere, I'm happy. It does not matter somebody's there or not.
Was that somebody always there? You fear the ending of something. You fear that things would come to an end. What is certain about anything that can come to an end? Hmm? If it would come to an end, surely it started. What was there before the starting?
My thoughts were there.
So, do thoughts come to an end?
Thoughts can never come.
What happens when you go deep into sleep?
They are disturbance.
So, if thoughts come to an end, surely thoughts are beginning at some point, somewhere. What was there before thoughts began?
No thought, just fear.
I'm there.
And because at that time there was anyway no thought of the object that you now fear would come to an end, so there was no fear.
About that particular object.
Because the thought of the object had not even begun.
Sometimes even it goes down to fears are so deeply embedded in us. So for example, fear of dark, fear of heights. We don't even know why we fear, but we just fear. So I think it goes down to a level that it becomes instinctual.
Fear is not of the unknown, it's something unknown. That is unknown, I cannot be scared of that.
So what happens when you, for example, look down the cliff?
Something like my life will end. I get injured.
Is the cliff saying that to you? Is the cliff saying that to you?
That's all thought.
Are the mountains, the skies, or the birds saying that? Just as the young man said that anything and everything that is happening and anybody and everybody who is acting is just the begging and the beggar. Similarly, would it not be nice to say that anything that we think of, any of our purposes, goals, and actions, they all are simply this that we can call as fear, call as ignorance, call as suffering. We can choose the name. More often than not, we will choose a nice name, a comfortable name, something that doesn't trouble us. In fact, it is necessary, because if we call fear as fear, then there is a responsibility to do something about it. But if we call fear as love, then nothing needs to be done. We can safely claim that already something beautiful is present in my life. It is not a problem to be resolved. It is not a challenge. It is not suffering at all. It is love, and probably divine love. Is not love as we know it just another name for something else? Is not fear the primary motivator of even the most ordinary of our actions? And is not fear that same basic thought, or as you would say, the same basic instinct that one would be reduced, belittled, and eventually eliminated? the less you have. The more is your effort to get, and the more is your fear. And the more is your fear, the smaller you think yourself to be. The smaller you think yourself to be, the more again is your effort to obtain something, greatness, bigness from outside. And because it is to come from outside, it is unreliable. No beggar is ever sure of how heavy his begging bowl would be at the end of the day. The world is not obliged to meet your expectations. Today the world may give you something, tomorrow it may not. Is not the basic relationship with world fear itself? Because the very fundamental relationship with the world, and when I say world, I mean the world even in its smallest aspects. Sitting on a chair, looking at a stranger, asking for information, watching television, is not a person's basic relationship with the world itself to be named as fear. Relationship as we know it is simply dependency, is simply about taking. And of course giving. One does not give alms to a beggar for nothing. The beggar does give you something. What? A pitiable look. But the beggar, in his own smartness, thinks that what he has received from the world is more valuable than what he has given. He says, oh, giving somebody a totally dead look, a diseased look, a hungry look is so easy. I didn't have to spend anything in giving that look. But by giving that look, look, I just obtained 2 pennies. So expenditure, nothing. Income, 2 pennies. That's what everybody is thinking. That's our basic relationship with the world. Self-preservation, and if the opportunity allows, then accumulation. At the very least, let me preserve what I already have. And if it's a lucky day, then let me augment, add something to the kitty. It's a random world. A million cause and effect linkages are there, and they too are interplaying with each other. You never know what would happen. The beggar goes out to the crossing and the city is locked down in a strike. The beggar didn't know about the politics of the state. He didn't know that somebody would call a strike. The beggar goes out to beg and it is raining heavily. The heavens have opened themselves up. Zero traffic. The roads are flooded. The universe is beyond his comprehension. So even on the finest day, he is still unsure of what would happen the next day. Yes, today it is sunny and nice, and people are so magnanimous. Everybody is in a charitable mood. But we do not know what might happen tomorrow. Today everybody is thanking God and looking so religious. But tomorrow the enemy may drop a bomb on the city. And then one does not know what would be the mood of the people. When it comes to dealing with the world is always uncertain. And the more you are dependent on the world, the more serious and critical are your linkages with the world, the more responsible you feel towards the world, the more you would be steeped in fear. To be worldly is to be fearful. The young man is gradually seeing that he does not need too many words in his vocabulary. Gradually, his language is becoming simpler and leaner. He only uses a few words. He does not see great diversity anymore. Sometimes when he sees a trembling man, he just says, world. Sometimes when he sees misery, he says, world. He sees a birth, the wails of the newborn, he says, world. He sees a death, the grief of the relatives, he says world. He sees lovers locked in passionate embrace, he says world. He sees somebody trying to kill somebody, he says world. I'm seeing that slowly it would be difficult for him to even say world. He'll just be reduced to silence. To say fear is to deceive oneself. Because if you say at one or two moments in the day that you are afraid, then surely you are implying that you are not afraid at other times in the day. That's the purpose of diversity in language. It gives you the happy illusion that things are different and changing. A young man does not see anything changing. He says, "Why do you say that you are afraid?" Because you are anyway always afraid. Simply say, fear is your name. Don't say that you are afraid. Just say, I am fear. Not that I am afraid. Simply say, I am fear. It's just that sometimes you give your fear nice names. Sometimes you call it ambition, sometimes you call it responsibility, sometimes you call it knowledge, sometimes you call it inspiration, sometimes you call it enlightenment. Why are you using such multiplicity of words? They are not needed. You are the world, and the world only apparently has diversity. What are these houses? Why do you call them houses? What are these walls? Why do you call them walls? Would there be walls without fear? Then simply say fear and more fear. What are these buildings? What is this thing called progress? Would it be there without fear? Why do you call it progress? Just call it fear. Eliminate the redundant words from the dictionary. One does not need them. Why have you given your festivals diverse names? Simply say fear. What is the need to mark different days in the calendar with different names? Simply mark all days with just one name, fear. The sun rises again, fear rises again. The sun sets, more fear rises. Do not think that fear lives in a compartment. Do not think that it comes to you only sometimes. If you could be as sensitive as that odd young man, you would see that fear is the name of every breath that we take. Fear is our basic relationship with the world. Even at this moment, if you could be a little more alert and sensitive towards yourselves and look at your minds, you would not find any mind anywhere. Instead, you would just find fear. Why even call it mind? Why call dreams as dreams? Fear is the very essence, the very fiber from which all our dreams are woven. Would there be dreams without fear? Would there be hope without fear? Would there be fearlessness without fear? Would there be courage without fear? And I'm asking you, would there be God without fear? Remove fear and you will find that you have removed the world. And accidentally, there is no other way to remove fear. The more you are a resident of this world, the more you would be condemned to live in fear. You need not tell anybody your address. Just say, I live in fear. So where do you live? I live in fear. I have built a great new house. Over fear, called fear, in fear. No, it's not built over land. It's not called khannas. It does not have any bricks or mortar. It is built over fear, built in fear, and it is called fear. Those of you who have tried to chase success in this world know very well that all that you have received is fear. Kindly do not punish your children now. Kindly do not push them to make the same foolish mistakes that you kept making all your life. Your face, look at it. Your face reads fear. Don't hide your face. Have the courage to look at it clearly. Now don't teach your kids to become successful in the world. If at all they do become successful, they'll become successful in fear. I'm not here to assert that you have a metaphysical identity. I'm not here to assert that you have a home away from the world. But what is obvious and so clearly seen must be acknowledged. We have to acknowledge. that the quality of our relationship with the world just makes us more and more of a beggar. When these eyes look out, they're only looking out for prospective clients. When these ears hear, they are just craving to hear the sound of the coins. All that these hands want to touch is something material, something that can be consumed. All that this mind wants to think of is something that would give it security. Now tell me, have you ever seen anything else? Have you ever heard anything else? Have you ever touched anything else? Have any of your thoughts been about anything else? Incidentally, I was referring to the thoughts and the hands and the eyes of the beggar. This day, when you go out, try to look at your eyes. No, not look through your eyes, but try to look at your eyes. See how your eyes are looking. See what do they want. See what attracts your gaze. And then honestly ask yourself, are my eyes not searching for arms, I repeat, just see what you are looking at. And then see how you are looking at it. Ask yourself, don't I just want something from the object I am looking at? What else is begging? Whenever you look at something, you want something from it, don't you? What else is begging? These eyes open, and they open to beg. They open in desire. They open because they are not satisfied. The young man does not want to become a cynic. He is asking us, can there be a different way of looking? Can there be a different touch and a different mind? He is asking, can there be a different way of relating with the world? He wants an answer. We owe an answer to him. Can there be a different way of being, of living?
It's very difficult, I think. Because see, whatever we are doing, we are acting, we are thinking, it's outcome of desires only. How can we live other way around? It's very difficult to answer. And if we go that the more worldly we are, the more fearful we are. So does it mean that, see, every activity of ours, of mine, it's outcome of my fear. So to be fearless, that does it mean that should I stop doing anything? Should I stop thinking about anything?
I do not know. I am as clueless as you are. So I need your support in replying to the young man. Is it possible to look at something without consuming it? Is it possible to touch without desiring? Is it possible to relate without exploiting? Is it possible to take without giving and give without taking?
Yes, it's possible.
The young man is around. Don't give him a false hope. If you really think it is possible, then tell him more about it.
What if we can watch our thoughts for that moment?
Things come to you without a give or take relationship. And you realize that whatever you experience in life, whatever you got in life is a gift. And I think the reasons for fear will automatically reduce.
The young man is saying that he has seen so many people who think that what they have is a gift and they want more and more gifts. Don't disappoint him. You can very conveniently think that whatever you have is just grace, the gift of God, and then you can want more of those gifts. You can even complain. If you could give me this much, then why are you so stingy that you can't give me a little more? After all, your inventory is supposed to be infinite. Why are you spoiling your own name? Be a little more open-hearted.
So one of your story was that of 2 rupee coin and a diamond a man was taking, but he was unaware of the diamond. So when we know that there is a diamond, our petty needs disappear. So that can be a way of living. When we even a bit know that there is something, it leaves we have a mind that consuming mind automatically fades away. We don't have to do anything about that.
I don't know if there can be such a life, but I'm actually hoping there is one. But since last 1 hour, with the talk, I'm thinking of the number of ways I beg. I sit on the chair, I'm begging. I talk in a certain way in a language, I'm begging. And every bit of it is coming as a surprise. Oh my God, even this is the way of begging. This is another way of begging. The clothes I'm wearing, that's for sure begging. The authority I show as a parent or as a brother, begging. It is coming so much as a surprise that certain hopelessness is coming with, because every single thing is an action of begging. How can there be some diamond or whatever, only pennies and pennies? Hoping, but it's just an imagination right now. But those ways are coming as a big surprise. Though they were always around, but coming as a big surprise. The way I drive my car, I change the gear, I take a turn, everything is coming as an action of begging. And I'm sure I'll forget it after half an hour.
You know, the young man met a veteran beggar, one really established in the art of begging. And this one really knew a thing or two about his trade. He asked him, "What makes you beg with such regularity and determination? What makes you seek these pennies?" The veteran beggar replied, "The memory of the treasure that I had and lost." He said, there are these young beggars, they sometimes get so lazy that they take a day off from begging. But I have some memory of a treasure that I once had. I know what it is to feel really rich, complete, full. The call of that memory makes me go out and beg every day. I am determined to achieve that same fullness, that same treasure again. I am not deluded. I clearly remember I once had it, and it was blissful when I had it. And hence, now, in every way, big and small, I beg. I beg so that I may regain what I have lost. And my begging has such completeness and regularity and determination behind it only because I do have a memory of that. Without a memory of your intrinsic richness, why would you beg so much? Without having a faint remembrance of what it means to be full, why would you chase fullness so much? So it's strange. You beg because you know that your nature is richness. But the more you beg, the more you prove to yourself that you are not rich. It sits in our heart, the memory of the treasure. One could go directly to the heart or chase the treasure in the world. The young man says, search at the right place. You will not find in the world what is to be found in the heart. But if you can find your heart, you will find the heart in the world. Then the world is no more world. The world is as rich as your heart. Then the world is no more a begging place. It's your home, where you can pick up anything that you want. Yes.
I have one question. That there is a saying that Tulsi Varose Ram ke nirmay hoke soye. So in that way, we surrender to the Almighty that whatever is there, He will take care, and being relaxed in that way. Is it the right way to handle fear, or somewhere the inner ego will still keep on plotting or something like that? I need your guidance.
So that's it. Somebody trusts somebody. And that makes him fearless. Tulsi bharose Ram ke. Somebody is trusting something, somebody. You may not know what that something or somebody is. But what is certain is that it is being trusted. Do you trust anything? The way you look at the world, does the world inspire trust in you? Or doubt and suspicion? Do you really trust anything, anybody? And I am not yet coming to faith. I am just talking of trust. There is no need to quickly conclude who Ram is and what is meant by divine fearlessness. Much more important than that is to look into our daily lives and see the total presence of doubt. How will you trust an unknown, untouchable, unseeable, ineffable Ram when you cannot trust even the milkman? The wife and the kid, the neighbor and the colleague, they are always under the lens. Something doubtful is going on surely, right? How will Ram be a center of trust? How? See how much of our energy rises from suspicion. See how uncertainty and doubt motivate us so much. See how people are rushing around in their cars and the fuel is doubt. Doubt kills. It will not let you sleep. You cannot relax with doubt. Is there anything in your life that you are absolutely sure of? And if you are doubtful of everything, if you must distrust everybody, I am asking you, how do you sleep? And if you cannot sleep, why do you live? Why? I'll tell you why you cannot trust, why you cannot sleep. Because the beggar has only one little coin in his bowl today. Or that's what he thinks. And he doesn't want to go hungry. He cannot trust the world. What if somebody takes away his coin? What if the coin is lost due to some mistake? When you have so little, or that's what you think about yourself, then you cannot trust anybody. Whosoever finds that he is full of suspicion must know that he is full of suspicion, because firstly he thinks himself to be petty. When I asked you about the ending of things, I wanted you to go to the beginning of things. That's why I kept asking you, was it always there? Was it always there? Things begin and things end. That is the nature of things, to begin and end. And if begging is to end, you must investigate how it begins. When the beginning and the end are seen together, then you get freedom from both. There is no freedom from death until you first understand birth. How did you begin to be doubtful? Who taught you to be doubtful of everything? Who taught you that the world is an evil place? Who taught you that you are small and petty? It surely began. And if it began, and you can go clearly to the beginning, then you will find that you have come to the end. The beginning is daily. The ending too must be daily. The beginning is happening even now. Do you see the various ways in which you are made to feel that your bowl is empty? Do you see the various voices that keep telling you to achieve more? They are the ones who turn you into a beggar. Do you see how it begins? Catch it when it is beginning, and it will end. Don't let it go too far. Don't wait for the suffering to intensify. The wise man nips trouble in the bud. Don't let the evil seed sprout. Once it has become a giant tree, you'll find it very difficult to uproot it. I'm repeating, pay attention to the beginning. There is no other way to end. It is not your nature, neither fear, nor begging, nor the world. They all begin. The world begins. Fear begins. Begging begins. See how it begins. And I am saying it, beginning and ending is a continuous thing. Beginning happens every moment, with every thought, with every glance, with every sound that hits your ears. Catch it then. See how they encourage you to beg. See how there are embedded messages. See how there are encoded motivations. Learn to decode them. Learn to see things for what they are instead of using too many words like the young man. Remove the garbage from your vocabulary. It may come to you as care or affection, but learn to decode the message. It is neither care nor affection, it is simply fear. And if you can decode it in the beginning, I assure you, you will be free of it.
This is for something which experiencing now might be coming, but what if it has already taken the shape of a big ugly tree? Then what?
Don't water the tree.
You said it's very difficult to uproot it.
It will die down on its own. Don't provide sustenance and nutrition and energy to it. The tree thrives on the stuff that you provide it. Without your support, it will fall down on its own. But you must first see how you are responsible for the tree. Responsible in your ignorance. Not a willful responsibility. Responsible because you were ignorant. It happened. You didn't know what you were accepting. It happened. You didn't know that behind the sheen of colorful words, what was hiding. It happened. You didn't know that in the shiny gift pack there hides a snake. You are ignorant. You accepted things without verifying, without attending to them. Maybe you were too small, or maybe you were just inattentive. Children are the most exploited class in existence. They are made to accept so much in a very deceptive way. Seeds are sown in their minds, and as you said, the seeds later on become giant trees. See how it began. Then you won't be attached to the tree. The tree will fall.
So, to see the beginning, every moment thoughts are coming into mind. So, see the beginning, I have to be very much attentive in this moment. This is the only way.
Call it attention, or call it your simple nature of intelligence. Attention looks like hard work. So I would rather call it your simple natural intelligence. If you are not insistent upon being a fool, then each one of us is simply intelligent. The ways of the world will be very apparent. They cannot deceive you. If you can just look at things directly, innocently, you do not require any special faculty or training. You do not require to have had practice in some esoteric technique for 20 years. Just the simple innocent looking is sufficient, and you will come to see that black is black and white is white, and they are different. But if you are conditioned and your education has taught you that black is white and white is black, then you will find it very difficult to tell them apart.
Can we come out of this conditioning?
You'll have to see how it began. To come out of it, you'll have to understand how you entered it. Because you are entering it again and again. Coming out is very easy. The mind is not happy with conditioning. The mind suffers. The mind itself wants to come out. It has a natural urge to come out. Yet it never comes out. It never comes out because the conditioning begins again and again. The bucket has many holes. It should get empty on its own. The trouble is that it is getting filled at a great speed. So even as the water is leaking out of the holes, yet it is being filled with double the speed. Just turn off the tap and the bucket will get empty on its own. The mind has a natural way of cleansing itself. We are not idiots. All of us have natural intelligence. It is always at work. Suffering is not our nature. So when we suffer, there is an internal process that wants to eliminate suffering. It's a beautiful process, very capable one. It will take care of what is wrong with the system.
But it creates conflict and
Creates conflict, creates restlessness because there are two things that are clashing with each other. On one hand, water wants to leak out. On the other hand, you are insistent that the bucket should be full. That is conflict. Two divergent happenings happening in the same place. That is what you call as strife. Cross purposes. On one hand, the mind wants to move towards the truth, get empty. On the other hand, you are filling it again and again, over and over, with stuff from here and there. That is what is conflict and strife.
With questioning sounds.
Because somebody told me that this bucket should be full.
Yes.
I never tried to see what would happen if it was not full. It was empty.
Sir, one sees that this direct looking and this natural intelligence, when it is at work, it actually does magic. But the giant trees that we have grown, they actually hinder this process of looking at something directly. So, not watering the tree, will that ensure that, that will of course ensure that the tree won't grow anymore. But will that also ensure that the tree that has reached the point that it has reached, and the fact that it is hindering direct looking, will it also take care of that? I think not. The feebler the tree is, the easier it is for it to fall down. The stronger the tree is, the less you can do about it. Firstly, stop giving energy to the tree. There comes a point when it becomes so weak that you can push it and it will fall down. But not right now. Right now the tree is strong and you are weak. You are weak because all your energy has gone to the tree. First of all, stop giving importance to that which does not deserve importance. Stop giving energy to that which does not deserve energy. Stop giving time to that where time should not go. And then, as you reclaim your strength, maybe one day, with just one push, one shove, you will find that the tree is gone. It was already getting so weak. But if you try an axe, given your current state, you will find you can't even lift the axe. How will you bring down the tree? So, does that mean that the direct looking won't happen now? Because it is the tree that is blocking the process of looking at it directly. You couldn't have talked of the tree had direct looking not been happening. The tree has no capacity to reflect back at itself. That's the definition of the tree. It has no capacity for self-inquiry. If at this moment you are able to inquire, it only shows that there is still enough strength in you.
So, does it mean the channelizing of energy of thought in this direction should be changed, or?
How does it matter whether you beg left or beg right?
No, exactly not right. I am talking about thinking about the past which have already gone, giving thought to that past. It's a way to nurturing that tree. So again,
we need not say thinking about the past. All thought contains the past. You cannot think without the past. When you say thinking about the past is bad, in a sense you are implying that there is some other kind of thought which is good. All thought is the same. We'll have to go back to the basics. What did the young man see? He saw begging in everything that the human being does. Every thought, every touch, every glance. It is not selective. It is not as if some particular thoughts are thoughts of fear, or some particular thoughts are thoughts of the past. Thought is past. Thought is memory.
And the strength that has now gone into the tree, it can be reclaimed.
Yes. Even the tree wants liberation. It will thank you. It's not a happy tree, I assure you.
And time is not a factor involved here because
To the extent you are associated with time, time is a factor. But only to the extent you are identified with time. The more importance you give to time, the more time is a factor. And since you do give importance to time, so let's simply, to begin with, say that yes, time is a factor. Though eventually it may turn out that it was a very insignificant factor, not important at all. So, as things stand, you will have to be very particular about time. You will have to see where your time is going. You will have to see what you have been doing with your time and what you want to do with your time. At least till the stage when you are giving importance to time. There may come a point when time may become irrelevant. Then you can drop the whole thing.
So we were talking about why we are begging every time. So I realized that the basic problem that is my assumption that once I have richness, completeness, fullness was due to the presence of the object of richness. This assumption made me beg every time outside the world to gain again that object. That's why I beg every time. So was that really due to the object or due to it's my inner nature?
There is hardly any difference when you are very busy with the object. Then surely you will talk only of the object. Even to explain anything, you will use only the example of the object. And when you are dwelling within, then you will talk some other language. It totally depends on your state. Whether I say this or I say that, both would be incomplete.
Sir, what would be the difference between not watering the tree and suppression?
What is meant by suppression? What do you mean when you say suppression?
That some reaction is coming and you try to press it down so that it's not.
What is meant by pressing it down? What exactly?
That it is, you don't let it show on the surface.
So what happens then? Does it go away?
At that point of time, it seems so, but
Seems.
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 But same situation when it comes again.
So you are just not allowing it to show up.
Yes.
You are not really treating it. You are just afraid of its appearance. It must not show up. You have nothing to do with what it is all about. You have nothing to do with what its genesis is. all that you want is that it should not manifest.
No, after also knowing that the reason why it is coming, as in, still the same situation creates the same reaction. So,
Again, at some other point.
yes, as in,
So realize again why it is coming.
so to stop it at that point of time.
There is nothing called stopping it. You know what it is. What do you mean by stopping something? Stopping is just a concept. What is it? And when you know what something is, if it disappears upon knowing, then it is not suppression. Suppression is simply a hypocritical thing in which you do not understand what is happening, yet because of some pressure, some fear, you do not want the thing to become public, to exhibit itself. So you hide the signs, the signals. That is suppression. Suppression does not mean that the thing is going away anywhere. It is very much there still. In fact, you are helping that thing to be, because if it becomes obvious and everybody looks at it, then it will be talked about. Then there is a possibility that there may be some observation which leads to its resolution. But by suppressing it, you are nicely hiding it. Now it is safe.
So suppose one is frustration and he knows that because he can't take it out on everybody, so there are specific people that he can take out. Now he has seen it. He has seen it clearly that it's pure hypocrisy, that in front of the policeman, he's a duck, and in front of maybe his colleague, he tries to dominate. So, but still, the frustration is such that the same situation creates the same reaction.
The same seeing must happen again then.
That is realizing it.
Obviously. Realization is not a memory. You cannot store it. Realization is not something that you can write down in a book and claim to be yours. Realization is always instantaneous. Only then it has some benefit. So realize the same thing again and again, again and again. Realization anyway is not a thing. Realization is just a resolution of a conflict. So it leaves you with nothing.
But there is always, as in, I think this is the concept that I found in my mind, that realization means it's a lightning bolt, that you won't be the same person again after you see it clearly.
You won't be a same person in that moment of realization. But it gives no guarantee about the future. Realize it again. Why must you be so lazy? Are we sure that we have done justice to the young man? He asked for an answer, for some support. And I said he is around.
We first need to do justice with ourselves.
Maybe he is sitting within you. Maybe it's one and the same thing. We don't know where he is, huh? Let's go and try to find him in the shrine. They say he is more likely to be found in places of purity and meditation.